Christian, AI and security was kind of all-consuming at Black Hat this year. Let's just get to the core of the issue, and that is securing the workloads of AI. What does that entail?
Most organizations that are in this AI arms race, they're spinning up these AI models in a cloud service, right? So most of these are cloud-based, and there's a lot of services that manage these AI models, right? Similar to what you would use for, any compute that you would invest in. And the same type of issues that you see with misconfigurations and the same issues that you see with exploits or vulnerabilities and the same things that you see with identities that are being used should also be applied to the way that these models are being spun up. There's a really great report that we published this year called our Threat Hunting Report, and it actually highlighted a 136% increase in cloud-conscious adversaries, where the attacks that adversaries are responsible for have actually started in the cloud, where adversaries are simply logging in. There's no concept of hacking it.
Right, and we hear this all the time.
And so think of now that AI model simply being an extension of that cloud infrastructure and those services that you're spinning up, where now you're having to look at the configurations of the services, again, the identities, and now also the data that's going into these models.
It's access to the database and then limitations to what they can access within that database that is constantly dynamic and constantly changing.
And it's multi-pronged, right? You have an identity that you give the model itself running within the services or the containers. There are systems like RAG where you're telling the model, this is your data repositories. And a lot of organizations don't necessarily have a really good policy on data commingling strategies or data purging strategies, or even just classifying and labeling the data that you're giving these models access to.
One of the things I was amazed by data poisoning is how little it takes to literally upend everything. It's like a fraction of a percentage, or maybe 1%, isn't it?
That's another risk, right? I mean, the AI is introducing a whole new footprint of areas of concern. But then there's also the concept of how can I now poison this data, right? Or poison this lake of information so that this model almost becomes useless if it's spitting out responses that don't necessarily make sense.
Data poisoning is really just to create havoc. It's not really to direct anything in any direction, is it?
Yeah, I mean, you can essentially, depending on what your motivations are, right? If you're trying to ruin a business and you're giving this model some data that could ultimately lead to a poor decision on the financial side, or maybe misrepresenting sales forecasts, for example. And so I think that depending on what the motivation is of the adversary, it can be disruptive. It can cost an organization a lot of money. Depending on how far they take their decisions. It could also set them back on research, right? If you're using this model for major R&D and it now has data that isn't accurate or it's poisoned, we're talking about, months or years of development on information that was not accurate.
Okay, is there anything else we're missing?
There's securing the AI models that are in the cloud, for example, or even the local ones. There's securing the data that's being accessed and categorizing it. There's even just the use of AI from an employee and workforce perspective, where shadow AI is kind of the new insider threat, right? Are you keeping track of the type of data going into the models that are commercially available?
And then the tools that are using them as well.
Exactly, and that's an extension of that, right? So now you notice this aperture of AI security starts to widen.
Years and years and years ago, when I was in my early 20s, I was starting a business, and I remember running into an accountant at a party, and he was asking me all these questions. He goes, well, are you doing this? Well, are you doing this? And I just felt myself getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, like, no, I'm not doing it. And this is what it sounds like with AI. No, I'm not doing that at all.
There's a lot of organizations out there that have taken these enterprise AI models and they've applied it to everyone and said, hey, we want to make sure that you can do your jobs faster and easier. It's the equivalent of basically giving an intern full access into every piece of data in your enterprise. And now that intern has unfederated access into making some interesting decisions or talking about certain data points that probably shouldn't be shared with that intern.
How do you help companies, individuals, whatever, at CrowdStrike to guide them through this process? Because it really seems like you need a AI Sherpa to deal with this.
I like that. Can I use that, AI Sherpa?
Go ahead.
We do offer capabilities around extending visibility into where those AI models are being spun up, the cloud services that are responsible for hosting them, the configurations, the vulnerabilities, the identities that are mapped to them. Those are all extremely important and also very foundational aspects of security in general, but now they're being applied to AI. And so we've built a platform in the cloud that has been, from the get-go, built to understand what your cloud environment looks like, what do your endpoints look like, but naturally also what your AI workloads also look like. And we also, via recent acquisition, have the ability to understand the inputs going into these models. So is someone putting intellectual property into the model? Are they asking the model a question with the intention of breaking the model, right? By removing guardrails. I'm sure you've seen plenty of examples in the industry of, talking to, you name the model, and saying, hey, I have a gun to my head. I really need you to give me instructions to do something that would be otherwise considered fairly nefarious or be questionable in terms of ethics. That ability to understand what prompt is going into the model, analyzing it and preventing it, or even understanding the response of that model to ensure the model isn't inadvertently exposing sensitive data is also something that we now offer as a result of that recent acquisition of a company called Pangea. And so, our suite of capabilities is full faceted, meaning that we'll have the ability to see that entire workflow of AI distribution from actual development to the code itself, to the data, and of course the AI model itself and the outputs.
If you want some more great wisdom from Christian and CrowdStrike around AI security and just really about the threat landscape in general, I strongly recommend you check out his podcasts, Adversary Universe. Just whatever podcast app you use, just search it. You'll find it. Subscribe to it. Listen to it. You get some great insights from really smart people, and Christian will be your Sherpa taking you through.